Driving in my truck with my sister heading back to Fargo, North Dakota. She just moved about 30 minutes north of town, and I'm helping her move her stuff up there, and we're heading on the way back. It's mid-November, and the weather in Fargo can get kind of squirrely in November. And so far it's good, but we're told that the weather could turn on us at any minute. But so far it's fine. We think we might even go get a second load to bring up to our new place. And as we're driving down on the interstate, we take a little corner and we hit some ice and we start slipping and sliding. Okay, it's time to slow down a little bit. Take another curve, go around another corner, and there's somebody, our first person that we saw in the ditch, in the snow. We thought, all right, time to pump the brakes a little bit more, slow down a little bit, and then pretty soon we saw nothing but brake lights, and we started sliding all over the place. People around us were sliding all over the place. I had accepted the fact that we were going to crash. There's just no way I could handle the truck in the ice, and the other people couldn't do it either. At one point, there was nobody to the right of me, and I thought, I'm going to take this thing into the ditch because I got this big truck. I'll get out of the ditch, but I want to get out of all these people's way. But the steering wheel didn't work. It was too icy. And so that just reinforced the fact that, oh, great, here we go. We're going to get in this crash. I'm mentally thinking, what am I supposed to do? Do I need to call the cops? Do I need to call the insurance company? What order do I do these things? And eventually, it all kind of settled out. Nobody, at least in our area, got into a crash, but we were all elevated heart rates, white knuckles, and luckily we were only 2 exits from town, and we took the first one, though. We said we're taking city streets the rest of the way home. Get back to my mom's place, and I'm telling everybody about this crazy near-death experience that I had. Almost got in a crash. Telling everybody that will listen about this horrendous ice, just a sheet of ice on top of the road. But I hear my sister telling a story too, and she says something a little bit different. She says, and we saw this car in the ditch, and Derek said, oh, I better turn on traction control and flip on 4-wheel drive. What a good idea. That was so good that he did that. I can't believe he did that. We probably would have crashed if he didn't do it. That's interesting. That's, I guess, technically true, but I had all but forgotten that I did that. And even if I remembered, it didn't even make it into my story. My story was about how we almost crashed. Her story was about the quick wits of her brother Derek. Like, not only did I not remember that, she made it the focal point of her story. We went through the same exact event, and we had 2 totally different stories. That's how human minds work. We're meaning makers. Okay, and this happened just a couple of hours before we're telling the stories. Now imagine if there was some separation and more events happening in between each event. How do we pick and choose which part of which event and which events do we choose? That's an interesting thing about stories, is we get to selectively remember what matters and what makes it into our story. Because we go through a lot of events. We have a lot of experiences. So think of this like various life events. Some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are between. And note that big events and small events are totally subjective. For some people, an icy road in Fargo, swerving all about, almost crashing, is a traumatic event. And I might not ever drive in Fargo again, or I might not ever drive in the winter again. And to some people, that was just a Saturday. And to most people, it's something in between. So a big event and a small event is completely subjective. But we've got all these life events, and we pick and choose which of these matter enough. Which of these were significant enough. And that becomes our life story. And remember, this life story is based on selective memory of only things that we remembered and deemed important. That's what makes it into our story. And that's your clients too. So you have to remember that when clients tell you their money story, when they tell you their life story, when they tell you about their journey, they're not keeping track of data. They're not telling you facts and data. They're giving you a curated version of what they remembered. And everything that we've experienced has led to our money scripts. So money scripts, these are like messages, rules that we follow about money. And they're shaped by these childhood experiences. But again, only the ones that we remember and only the ones that we thought were significant enough And these come from lessons that we learned. I know what many of you might be thinking. They might be thinking that I never got any experience, or I never got any lessons. But you probably did. Now, there's direct lessons. Most of our lessons were indirect lessons. This is what we learned from watching and observing the world around us. And so we go through life, we see, like little scientists, if-then statements, if this happens, then that happens, and we go to work testing that hypothesis. And if it seems to be strong enough, we create a little therefore, and that's our money script. If they talk about money, then they have a fight. And I noticed it again, and I noticed it again. I did not notice when they talked about money and didn't have a fight, confirmation bias. And I always noticed when they talked about money and fought. So if they talk about money, then they fight. That becomes a fact. Therefore, you shouldn't talk about money. That becomes the money script. Once we have these childhood experiences, of course, there's financial flashpoints. This is what financial psychologists call financial flashpoints. These are highly emotional events that happen to us after childhood. Somebody took advantage of us, or I got fired from a job that I thought I was going to retire from. These are, think of it sort of like, it's not exactly, but sort of like a traumatic event with money. It's enough, it's something happens outside of our worldview that it shakes our coherence, it shakes our worldview enough. And both of these lead to our money scripts. Those money scripts lead to our automatic behaviors. Those automatic behaviors give us some kind of outcome. And then, of course, this is a self-reinforcing thing. Those outcomes solidify, they deepen our money scripts, or we alter them a little bit. And so these money scripts, think of it like an actor. Your favorite comedian, actor isn't funny necessarily. They're jokes. That actor is reading and performing the writer's jokes. And so they get the script and they act out that script. Or a computer script. It's a set of code that does a function. Hit start, zip, it goes through the lines of code and it performs some kind of action. Now, if you get enough of these scripts build up over time and they become something bigger. It becomes a whole screenplay, or it becomes an operating system. And that's your money story. So I like to sometimes think of our money story as kind of a little caricature. This is the guy, the person, thing that's got its voice in our ear. It's talking to us all day long. It's telling us stories. Okay, so the money story whispers. They tell you how to behave. They tell you what to do. They tell you how to act. I don't know where this guy's pupil went. I promise you on the sketch, it's there. That's interesting. So here we got maybe his eyes closed. But this money story whispers in our head all day long. Now, sometimes these money stories are true. Like our money stories, sometimes are rooted in truth. And he's missing his pupil again. Interesting. But so sometimes our money stories contain the truth. Like money can sometimes make life easier. That's true. But sometimes these shift over into the realm of untrue, outside of the truth zone. So money always makes life easier. So our money story, it's the narrative that we tell ourselves about money's role in our life, and it acts as if kind of like a little voice whisper in our ear. Now, we author our stories. We are the authors of these stories. We decide which events to put into our story. We decide which events matter, which events to include, and which events to leave on the cutting room floor. But we have to recognize ourselves as the author of these stories. Otherwise, it just feels like we're acting out somebody else's story. Automatic script, just like the actor reading the script. In narrative therapy, they have this idea about separating the person and the problem. So for most of us, our default mode seems to be that I have a problem. If there's something going wrong, I am the problem. We got two circles here, you and the problem. You are the problem. I am angry. I am depressed. I am bad with money. The key is to separate these two. Separate yourself from the problem. Externalize the problem. You are not the problem. The problem is the problem. I am experiencing sadness. I feel angry. Right? There's anxiety here. So once you can separate yourself from the problem, you can see it as something that can be tackled, something that can be solved, something that can be addressed. So externalizing the problem. It's the same thing with our money stories. We have to separate ourselves from our stories and see that we're the author. And once we see ourselves as the author, well, now we can go about changing our money stories. Now, so it starts off with these scripts, money scripts, and this collection of money scripts leads to our money story, and from that money story leads to our behavior. And this is where clients are when they come to see us. So note, when you're talking to clients about their money story, you're not trying to tell them what their story should be. You're not trying to fix their story. You're not trying to make their story better. You're trying to, one, yourself understand what their story is so that you can present your recommendations in line with the story they're already telling themselves. But it's also to help them see that they're telling themselves a story. It's to help them see that they're the author of the story. So this is not for fixing, this is for understanding. If you can start to learn what your client's money story are, you can start to connect with them on a deeper level, and then that will increase trust, and that will increase engagement, and that will increase follow-through. Hey, Derek Hagan here at Money Quotient. If this was interesting to you, if this is something that you want to learn more about, this is the kind of thing that we teach at Money Quotient. We teach financial advisors communication skills, facilitation techniques. We teach them about life planning. And basically it all comes down to Stephen Covey's quote, "What good is climbing a ladder if it's leaning against the wrong wall?" Or if the ladder you're climbing isn't leaning against the right wall, every step you take just gets you to the wrong place faster. So we help advisors, help clients identify the right wall. So if this is interesting to you, head on over to moneyquotient.com. You can learn about our True Wealth planning process, which is our model of financial life planning, which guides clients through 5 stages and 4 inquiry categories. These are the types of conversations that you have. So please let me know if you want to learn more, moneyquotient.com.